John Middlecoff on the Raiders releasing Christian Wilkins. Ladies and gentlemen, this story is absolutely bananas. This is a straight up episode out of Law and Order SVU type situation. The Raiders released Christian Wilkins. Okay, so on the football side of things, Christian Wilkins was hurt last year. A stud player was hurt last year, has I think a Jones fracture in the old foot. There was a little bit of a kerfuffle over his rehab, over what he was doing, how he was preparing, and the Raiders wanted to get out of the contract, all right? Which, it happens with teams where, the team tries to get out of a contract and a grievance is filed, is what it is. Well, now the scuttlebutt is that Christian Wilkins was allegedly kissing people on the forehead in the locker room, and that's why the Raiders released him. So let's see what Johnny has to say about all that.
Into the Christian Wilkins situation. Now, first and foremost, I'm not a contract negotiator. I'm not an arbitrator. I don't know how this thing will play out when the NFL, the NFLPA, which obviously has some issues.
Yeah, I can tell you the last group on earth that needs to be passing judgment on someone kissing foreheads is the NFLPA, who was spending every happy hour they could down at Tootsie's in Miami getting lap dances on the company dime.
Wilkins, the Raiders, they all get involved fighting over the money and the semantics and the details over what you owe me and what I don't owe you. Obviously, the Raiders don't want to pay this player who got well over $80 million last year in guaranteed money, as high as you will see a unrestricted free agent sign for. Honestly, non-quarterback over the last several years, it has to be the most money, right? A unrestricted free agent got on the open market. Now, typically, I would say not even typically, good high-end defensive linemen, whether they're defensive tackles or pass rushers, do not hit after their rookie contract if they are elite players, big-time players, the open market. That does not happen. So overall, I think this is a very good lesson. Guards hit the open market. Linebackers hit the open market. Hell, second wide receivers sometimes hit the open market. Tight ends can hit the open market. But typically, awesome tackles and awesome defensive linemen never hit the unrestricted free agent market in their mid-20s. Why? That's not how the NFL works. And I think this serves as a good example. Tom Telesco is currently on the street. I don't blame him for signing this contract, right? But there was a reason he was available. We can say a lot about the Miami Dolphins.
There's a lot of case studies that can come from this. One case study would be this is exactly why the NFL doesn't want fully guaranteed contracts, because all hell can break loose in situations and with players and whatnot. On the other side, like John is alluding to, if a player is on the open market, more than likely is for a reason.
I don't think they're well run. You got to give them credit on this one.
Yeah.
They could have franchised him. They could have extended him. And they said, we're out of the Christian Wilkins business. Now, obviously, there was an injury that took part to help create this weird situation. If he was fully healthy and had a good year, who knows? I doubt they're cutting him. But he gets injured. He's not able to participate. And clearly, they were very uncomfortable with being in business with this player.
All right, take out the kissy forehead. This is exactly what the Saints and Derek Carr were heading towards, because whenever there's $30 million, $40 million, whatever, hanging in the balance, and there's a discrepancy in the rehab or a discrepancy in the doctors or a discrepancy in when the injury occurred, anytime that happens, you're going to get into this arbitration where the team is going to try and recoup some of that money. What would have happened with Carr is, when did the injury happen? Does the team want Derek to have surgery? Does Derek want to have surgery? Oh, let's just take Carr out of it. Again, we're taking the kissy out right now. With Wilkins, the argument was going to be that the team wanted him to have surgery. He didn't want to have surgery. And then there was going to be questions about the rehab and the injury itself. There was a video of him dancing in the locker room, whatever. It gets real muddy. It gets real weird. there would have been a settlement or something, then they recoup some money. That's just how it works. Now, where this gets interesting is that the Raiders are now alleging that there was basically HR complaints that Christian Wilkins, I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen, that Christian Wilkins kissed a player on the forehead, and that player did not like that, and the player went to HR and filed a complaint, which to me sounds ridiculous. In what universe, in what locker room, more specifically an NFL locker room, is that going to happen and the response be for the player to go to the HR office and file a complaint? I have a sneaky feeling that would have got dealt with in the locker room, like immediately. There would have been an HR complaint filed, okay? I don't even know, like, for all of you who work and have jobs with an HR division, how many of you even know how to file an HR complaint? I've worked in a bunch of corporations. I don't know how to file an HR complaint. You think the alpha dogs in the NFL locker room, their first thought is, man, I need to see my HR representative about this.
Because that, when you're paying a guy this type money, like the Raiders like being in business with Max Crosby.
Oh, that's another part of it too. You think they're going to release, if Christian Wilkins was fully healthy playing at the highest level, you think they're going to release one of their best players because of an HR issue? Again, the NFL is a haven for players playing amidst HR issues. Okay? Greg Hardy was basically a Batman villain running amok, and he was playing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right? The 49ers like being in business with George Kittle and Fred Warner. The Chargers like being in business with Justin Herbert and Rashawn Slater and Derwin James. The Raiders and John Spytek and Pete Carroll, and listen, I said this last week, this would have been a difficult move for John Spytek if John Middlecoff or Bill Middlecoff or James Middlecoff was the first-time head coach and the coach of the Raiders that Spytek had hired this offseason. It becomes a lot, you like how I just dropped different names with my last name? It became a lot easier to do business this way when Pete Carroll goes, I've been coaching this league for decades. I've won a Super Bowl. Look at my resume. I know what I'm doing. I've also been in some weird situations with contracts with guys I've drafted, guys whose numbers will be retired by the Seattle Seahawks. We can handle this. But this guy's not going to be on the team anymore. Now, Schefter had some comments today that were kind of funny. I mean, in a way. I'm just going to read it to you.
There ain't nothing funny about sucking foreheads, Johnny.
I'm sure many of you have either seen the clips or read some headlines over what happened, but I
haven't
just
seen
want
any
to
clips,
hammer
I
this
swear to
home
God.
so we're all on the same page.
I haven't
This
clicked
was
any
an
links.
article that Schefter tweeted out. Christian Wilkins, who was released by the Raiders, kissed a fellow player on the head, and the teammate took offense to it. A source told Adam Schefter. The incident was not the sole reason that Wilkins.
If Max Crosby or Rashawn Slater or any of these superstar players, they could go down the locker room playing, duck, duck, goose, basically, kissing the entire roster's forehead. They're not getting released over it. I think this story is fugazi. I think this story is fake. It doesn't make any sense at all. Now, I'm not saying that something didn't happen, but the idea that he kissed someone's forehead, they didn't like it, and he rolled up to HR, and that was the reason they got rid of him? Yeah, right.
Wilkins was cut, sources say. Wilkins has been recovering from a Jones fracture while he suffered in his left foot last October.
Yeah.
Last week's incident, this obviously the kissing incident happened a week ago, happened inside the Raiders locker room. One source told ESPN.com that the interaction was playful, but the teammate did not see it that way.
That is an insane sentence. Just imagine. He's dropping the kiss on the forehead. Okay? The other player not seeing it playfully. Pissed. Just steam blowing out of his ears. Wet one, playing it right on the forehead. He huffs and puffs to HR. writes down the complaint.
It's not known what the fellow player did following the incident. A complaint
Sounds like he went to HR.
was filed to the Raiders HR department, which investigated the incident, a source told Schefter. The Raiders, through a team spokesman,
what do you think the investigation looked like? It was like a magnifying glass on the guy's forehead with like, with like an outline of like the big red kissy lips. So, yep, let's do an investigation. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's evidence right here. Looks like a good old-fashioned French kiss on the forehead to me.
Declined to comment. When you are getting to business with people in free agency, especially nowadays where the cap is huge, the money for these guys that are available, you have to pay extra because the supply and demand on the open market, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Jalen Carter, Nick Bosa, those type guys in their prime are never available. So the guys that are available, Christian Wilkins, always get probably 20, 30% more on the open market than they would have got if they just would have got an extension with the team. But they're available for a reason. Their team didn't want them. There's a reason typically you date someone before you marry them. It's a pretty big commitment.
Yeah, never forehead kiss on the first date.
And in free agency, now the money that is on the line, it's an enormous commitment to make to a player like this. And clearly, this administration wanted no part of it. Now, we will see how it plays out with the money, with the dead cap, and obviously there is some stuff in flux. But this is a good example that John Spytek and especially Pete Carroll, who, guess what, the defense and physicality and the defensive line and the defensive backfield, which are intertwined, or his baby, couldn't stand this guy. Who knows, and maybe we will get more information with this kissing incident in the locker room. But here's what I know. The players on the team and the head coach, who probably is going to be a Hall of Famer one day, didn't want to look at this guy anymore.
You know how much of a weird boy you got to be for this to be taking place? Like, I mean, they're making it sound like this guy was burning down buildings. Like, how much of a weird boy was he that the team can't stand him, can't stand looking at him, want him out of there, get him out of the locker room? He's making me sick. Like, damn, what was this dude doing? Let me tell you this, and if you've played any organized sports at a junior high school, college, junior college, whatever level, the locker room is a weird place. Weird stuff happens. Weird boy activity happens. Why? Who the hell knows? A bus after a game, traveling back, not where you want to be. Okay? Do you know how weird you got to be for in that environment, which is already just a lawless haven? You know how weird you got to be in that environment for your fellow teammates to be like, get this guy out of here. Get him out of this locker room.
And this is why, right, when you talk about extending guys, coaches come and go. Administrations come and go.
Coaches
Look at some
come
of these
and go.
guys that just got extended.
Kisses last
Cortland
forever.
Sutton, Rashawn Slater. They have new coaches. They have new GMs from the guys that actually picked them coming out of college. But there are still people in that infrastructure, specifically the owner, who through the transition has been around a guy and go, I like this guy. I want to be in business with this individual. And obviously, depending on the position
I like this guy. I want to be in business with this individual. I don't like that guy. He gives forehead kisses.
you play, depends on how much money you are arguing for and they're willing to pay you. But people have no problem paying guys that are good guys, that are trustworthy guys. Obviously, you've got to be a good player, but that I feel comfortable with. And clearly the Raiders don't feel comfortable with this player and couldn't get him to pack his bags fast enough. And I think this move becomes a lot easier when you got Pete Carroll as the poster child for your organization. So it would have been a very difficult thing for a guy like Liam Cohen to do. We would have been like, does this guy know what he's doing? But when Pete Carroll does it, no one thinks it's weird at all. And then this information comes out, it's like, yeah, the team doesn't even like the guy.
I don't know, man. Again, like I think this is kind of, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out as far as what comes out, but I just think it's crazy where it's like the team only wants good guys. Only good guys are in the NFL, not kissy guys. It's like half the NFL, there's a story about them driving 240 miles an hour in a school zone, 3x the legal limit. You know, like you hear these stories all the time. It's I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of players on pretty big contracts who've got some, less than stellar blemishes on their resume, and we're acting like this guy is, like, I don't know. It all just seems kind of weird.
So let this be a warning. When you are going to get into business with people in free agency, it's extremely risky. There is a reason
warning to?
That guy is on the open market.
People going
because
to
unlike
Ibiza?
some sports, in baseball, maybe the team doesn't have the money. The A's, the Rays, they're never going to pay certain guys. In basketball, if I have a couple max guys now with these new rules, I can't sign you. I have to let you go. In football, we can always manipulate the cap. If I want you, I can keep you.
Well, that's what got Christian Wilkins in trouble. That kind of mindset right there. If I want you, I can keep you. Here's a little forehead kiss.
And typically teams want defensive linemen, especially ones they draft. And the Dolphins said, I'm out. And then Pete Carroll, how many months have they even been together now? 3 or 4? Said, I'm out. Pack your shit and get out of my locker room. Pro golfers.
Well, I think this lasted a little while. I think this whole thing's been going on for like a month and a half. I'm pretty sure this all kicked off early June, right? Something like that. And now it's like reached this NFLPA grievance kind of situation. This is what I think happened. What I think happened was, I think Wilkins gets hurt. I think there was definitely an issue with the injury. I think the Raiders probably wanted him to have surgery or however it played out. But there was definitely issue about the surgery and the rehab and the foot and the injury or whatever. I think they wanted him to be doing something and he wanted to be doing something else. Now, I don't mean to kiss him. And I think when push came to shove, they said, let's just clear the books. Let's get out of the contract. There might have been some other issues going on, and that was about it. I think he fights for the money, and then I believe there was some kind of a plan of, hey, look, what do y'all hear about Christian Wilkins? What's the thoughts on Christian Wilkins? What's the news on him? And then now it's just a full on like leak whatever you got. Yeah, he's a weird boy. Yeah, he's doing this. Yeah, he's kind of a freak. Whatever. Okay, put it out there. Who cares? And now it's just like a scorched earth kind of campaign. But I just don't buy. And I think there's definitely something else. I think the kissy forehead story is a red herring for whatever actually happened. There's no way him planting a kiss on someone's forehead led to this. No way. So I think they're using that as the description of a story that they don't want to talk about. And we're really getting into the conspiracy theory here, but I think there was a situation that was weird that they don't want to release yet. And so they're just using this kissy thing as like a dumbed down version of it to not get into the details. I'd be kind of surprised if we ever heard straight up what was going on. I think Wilkins will more than likely get his money, but not have to play. Because again, the NFLPA just in a horrible situation. They just have no leverage. So I think Wilkins can just say, you know what? Fine, I'll take a year off and make $30 million. Who cares? But, all right, ladies and gentlemen, insane story. I mean, the Raiders going to Raider, but insane stuff going on out there in Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, except for this time, I guess. All right, let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.